that really made a difference in his life. And I just want you to think about that this morning. You think, well, I'm just one person, I can't do anything. But you can. You can make a difference. You can be that one ant that leads the others. You know, you can actually lead them in the wrong way as well. So we want to lead people in the right way, don't we? We want to be the good ant, not the bad ant. And so I want to ask James to come now and share his testimony of what God has done in his life. So, James, would you come? Let's welcome James this morning. And he said he's nervous, and I said, that's all right. It's good to be nervous. My husband always said, if you get up to teach or preach and you're not a little bit nervous, he said, then I'd be worried.
And I see there's a camera up there. Great. Not what I wanted to see. Actually, it's kind of cool that I think it was a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, I got a Nanny gave me a Bible from Jimmy Huddleston, and so get to use that today. And it's really neat that having his notes in here and stuff. He was a big influence in my life with Nanny and all those, but we'll get into that later. First, I just want to say thanks for having me. I was in youth ministry at one time and I haven't spoken in a few years, probably about 9 to 10. So it's a little different. Never spoke in front of adults. So if I act weird or something like that, just ignore it. I was in youth for the longest time, so just ignore my bad speaking and all that for the youth. So anyway, really do appreciate y'all having me here. I'm just going to jump in with the first scripture is Isaiah 64, 8 through 9. And it says, Yet, O Lord, you are our Father. We are the clay, you are the potter. We are all the work of your hand. Do not be angry beyond measure, O Lord. Do not remember our sins forever. Oh, look upon us, we pray, for we are all your people. And just kind of go on what Nanny said is, I'm not up here to preach about me or stuff. It is my story, and I will say it is kind of PG-13. I did have a few things happen, but I just want y'all to know that one person can make a difference. It's all about, a lot of this today is a lot about, you'll see about investing in people in your life, and you hang on to those people. Because we can preach the word all day long, and people won't believe us unless we invest in them. And that's what is about. Then I'm going to go to Isaiah 55:11. And then the potter's hand is just like God molds us for our story. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a past. Everyone has a future. And so God molds us where we end up in everything. So Isaiah 55:11. Let's see, here we are. I was looking at my notes instead. It says, So is my word that goes forth from my mouth, that it will not return to me empty, but it will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it. So anytime someone talks to us about Jesus or we talk about Jesus or anything, that word might seem insignificant. You might just say, hey, God loves you, or just anything in general about Jesus. That word that comes out of your mouth will not come back void. That God will use that. It might be a little seed planted, and they might not see it for future reference. It might be way down the future before you see how that took effect into someone. So I'm just going to get into it so I can relax a little bit. Honestly, my testimony, I always call it 3 miracles. There's 3 miracles that have happened in my life that God showed me, and I know y'all have all probably read about like Jesus healing people, Paul, Peter, and all those disciples healing people, and that miracles happen. And there's a kid laughing in the back. I'm about to punch him in the face. Hold on. No, just joking. Sorry. So I grew up in a small town. I don't know if many of y'all know where Danville, Arkansas is. It's like this little place on the map that's weird. So I grew up there. I was adopted by my grandma, actually, and she was married at the time. And I grew up Jehovah Witness. I don't know if y'all know much about the Jehovah Witnesses. I'm not going to talk bad about them, but if you ever grew up like or seen anything about them, it's kind of cultish. I'm not going to lie. It's a little bit there, But I grew up that way, and then about my age 5, my adopted dad passed away abruptly at a heart attack. Actually, it's crazy to hear, but y'all know where Firestone is? He was climbing the tower and had a heart attack, and he passed out there. That's where he died at. So it's kind of weird seeing that, like, every time you pass Firestone, knowing, like, that was part of your life in your, when you were younger. So we grew up poor. She was a single mom. I have a sister. We grew up poor. She was over the school cafeteria. And how many of y'all ever ate cafeteria food in the school? Like those little square pizzas? Dude, I lived off that stuff. Let me tell you, it's not good for your certain movements in your body sometimes, but we had to live off that a lot of times because we just lived poor. But, she tried the best. She kept 2 jobs. She helped take care of a lady and stuff. So, as a kid, I had a lot of freedom because there was no one there watching me very much. So that was not good for me sometimes. But anyway, so that just, we just lived a normal life, poor, lived in like a little trailer and, just did my thing, till age 13 or 14, and then just so you know, my mom did pass last year. God rest her soul. She tried her best with us. She did an awesome job. She was one of the sweetest ladies you could ever meet. I know Nanny got to meet her when we got married here and stuff. So she was a sweet lady and tried her best with us. So it's not her fault how I ended up. But so at the age of 13 or 14, I started hanging out with some older people, or older guy, I should say, probably in his 20s, and I'm 13 or 14, hanging out because the dude would get us alcohol in school. So I was around age 14. I got into drinking because it was the easy thing to get a hold of at that time. And I mean, when I'm talking about drinking, I'm not talking like I'd have a beer. I'm talking I'd get passed out drunk at the age of 14. Smoke my cigarettes and whatever you want to do with it. So, and then one night, man, we were just at this party, and all these people left. And at the age of 14, it was just me and this guy. And of course, I was drinking, and then woke up to him sexually molesting me. So at the age of 14, I got really confused about the emotions. We were still going as a Jehovah Witness and stuff, and it didn't make sense to me that these people are talking about, and this guy was part of the Jehovah Witnesses that I was hanging out with. And not saying all of them were like that. Don't take that way. Please don't. That's not what I mean. They're awesome people out there that are Jehovah Witnesses. But so my life went into this crazy spiral because I'm 14, and you go to this church, and they're telling you, God's good all the time and all this. And I'm like, okay, if God's good, why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? Does this happen to everyone? I was really, really confused with it. So my mom saw that I was not very happy because every time I walked in there, that guy was there. I didn't really tell anyone at the time because I didn't know, 14, didn't know what really happened. And so it was a really confusing time in my life. So what I did is I went to drinking more. I got away from that guy, and I got into drinking more. I dabbled into witchcraft at that time of drinking because these people would actually accept me for who I am. So I'm like, okay, God's not accepting me. So if I can get in with these witchcraft people, talking about we're reading the Satanist Bible and stuff, but they all accepted me for who I am. So I'm like, this is awesome. I'm finally accepted into something. So I'm like, just basically said, you know what? I don't need God. I can drink and do my witchcraft. And it was all because of a girl. I thought a girl was hot, so I went, and I'm not going to lie, I was like, all right, sweet, I got it made here. I was, then I started, after that happened, I started getting into the marijuana. I dabbled a little bit in the ecstasy, PCP, all that, all that junk, and stuff. And then there's just one day, I don't know if it was the witchcraft or the drugs or what, but I just decided one day I'm going to hang myself and kill myself, because this life, this is just, I'm accepted by these people, but then this still happened. And I'm like, I'm going to go to my room, I'm going to find a rope, I'm going to hang myself. So that's what I attempted to do, and the rope broke, and I couldn't tie it back up and do it, so it failed. So, I guess you could say that was a miracle in itself, or I just had a small rope. I don't know. That's not one of the three miracles, but, that is one thing. Then my real dad, after all this happened, started trying to come back in my life. He was, I never really met him until I was probably 14, 15. And then he tried to come back into our lives and stuff. And then he got very abusive and would hit us and stuff. And I was like, dude, you've just got to go. Of course, I was at that age like, dude, if you try this again, I'm going to take a baseball bat upside your head. I'm not even going to lie. Anger in me and everything. But so he left, and I will say to this day, at the end of his life, probably about 10, 11 years ago, he tried to reconcile our relationship and apologize, and I wouldn't have it. And that, to this day, is still one of the biggest regrets, because I don't know if God changed his life or not. So, it's really just bad that I just didn't even consider it. And I'm not going to lie, I was a Christian at the time when he came back. I was on my journey in my walk, and I just wasn't going to have it because of the abuse and stuff. And, if there's someone in your life like that or anything, I beg and plead today and pray that God puts it on your heart to forgive those people, to reconcile that relationship, because that is one of the worst feelings I wake up to. It is a burden that I have to bear almost daily, knowing that, God could have changed him and I could have had a relationship with him, but I didn't. So anyway, that kept going until I just was drinking, doing stuff. And at the age of 17, I was thinking, man, I'm almost out of school. Here I am just drinking at school, doing drugs, whatever, that it might be time that I tried to change my life a little. So I was like, okay, maybe I can change something, quit the drinking and all that. And then I had a friend at school that said, hey, dude, why, come to church with me. I'm like, no, I'm not going to go to church with you, man. He's like, no, man, just try to be cool. And, back then, like I said, I was in the witchcraft, so I was wearing, all these bracelets. I'm not saying everyone that does this, because I have friends that are, metalheads still, and they're Christians and all that. But, back then, I was wearing all this black stuff, these big Jinkos, the 90s little kid or whatever you want to say. I know y'all have seen it and stuff. Had, the collar bracelet or collar on here and all that. So he's like, man, just come to church with me, dude. It'd be good. So I'm like, okay, dude. Well, I need to change something, so I'll go with you and try it. So we go, go to service, all that. And I'm like, it was all right. It was cool. Then the pastor came up and said, hey, man, yeah, you can't come here looking like that. I'm like, oh, well, excuse me. I will see myself out the door. So I did. So I'm sitting there like, oh, okay, that's just weird. People keep telling me about this God, but yet I'm not accepted into the church, so why am I going to go there? Then I had another friend come up to me. He's like, dude, that church is, whatever. Come to my church. They'll accept you, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, all right, dude, I got to do something to change. So I go, and, it was good, everything. Then I had some older people come up to me like, hey, we appreciate you being here, but if you're going to stay looking like that, you're going to have to change to keep coming. I'm like, wow, okay, so God doesn't want me. That was in the back of my head at age 17. It's like, if I look like that, God doesn't want me. Okay. And then, probably a few weeks after that happened, I got a phone call that one of my good friends committed suicide, ran out in front of a semi to kill himself. So I'm 17, don't know what I'm doing, try to change. God didn't want me. Friend commits suicide. And I'm sitting here like, I don't know what else to do, so I'm going to do some drugs. And guess what drugs do? I can escape reality. I don't have to deal with the pain anymore in my life. So I'm like, drugs are the way to go. So at the age of 18, about a year later, I had a friend. He's like, hey, dude, you like doing drugs? You like drinking? He's like, you know, with meth and pot, you can sell it and make money. And you can just keep partying all you want. I'm like, never thought of it that way. I'm like, that's a sweet gig. So I ended up buying into the lie, I guess you could say, and just started partying. Man, we started selling drugs, and I'm talking like pounds and pounds on top of pounds. I'm saying we were running, I know it's not a big place, but we were running Yale County for sure with the drugs. We were just running them everywhere, back and forth to Louisiana, Texas. I mean, we were just running pounds of drugs. And, you know, the thing is, we didn't get caught, or I didn't get caught, but we paid people to run the drugs for us. So all we did, sit back, make money, and party. That's all we would do. We found this enterprise, and finally, I'm like, man, finally my life is making sense. I can be a drug dealer. I can live life. Don't have to worry about getting caught. We got it, set up, and of course, at that age, I started sleeping around. We party, you go to girl, you just keep partying. And about the age 20, my friend got busted at his house for all the drugs. And when I mean busted, I'm talking like there's probably 100 pounds of marijuana. I think there was grams and ounces and bricks of methamphetamines, because we learned how to cook it, and that's what we were doing. It's cooking, supplying, making, all that. He got busted, and then after he got busted, I was still, kind of doing my thing, and then I had a friend overdose. He didn't die, but he's brain dead. I don't know. I haven't really been in contact with his family ever since, because, it was my fault. I told the family it was my fault. I sold him the drugs. He OD'd, and he's brain dead now, or whatever, like a vegetable, I guess you could say, because of a mistake that I made of selling him too much, and I knew he wasn't able to control it, but he OD'd that night. And so then my friend told me that got busted. He's like, listen, dude, I know that we made our money, we were making money hands over fist, but he's like, this isn't a life. Like, you need to change your life, because this is going to end up where he took the rap for everything. It was my own drugs. And, I told him when he got busted, I'm like, dude, let me take the rap. It's my stuff. And he took the whole rap, and he served 10 years out of a 45-year sentence. Should have been life, but they went easy on him since it was his first offense. And as soon as he got out, about 2 years later, he ended up passing away. But he told me that time, like, hey, bro, you really need to change your life. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to deal with the pain. And that's at that age of 18, I knew that I was addicted to meth. When he told me that, I'm like, well, I can change some few things. I quit selling. I got out of the witchcraft. I tried to go to college. It lasted a whole day because I was still partying. Yes, I went to college one day. I had a full ride scholarship to college and went one day because I wanted to party instead. So that was my awesome college career. So if anyone ever asks, a guy that went to college literally for one day, and it was probably maybe 30 minutes and I left class. So anyway, college wasn't for me at that time. And then I realized, like I said, I was addicted to meth at that time. And when I mean addicted, I'm not saying I do a line here and there. I'm talking I do 5 a day, maybe 6, 7, just so I could party and get away, just get away from life. And then here comes miracle number 1 that talk about. I met a friend. His name was Brian Lewis. A friend that introduced us because I was working with him at the time. And I was addicted to meth at the time, still strung out, everything. And Brian was a Christian. He was a little different. He accepted me for who I was. He's like, "That's cool. You're on meth. That's cool. You can hang out with me. I don't care, whatever." And this dude, I'm telling you, he's like, "Dude, come to church with me." I'm like, "No." I said, "This is my past." I said, "Church doesn't want me." And for like 3 months of my life, the dude would not shut up. And I'm talking like every other day he'd be calling and say, "Dude, come to my church. Come to my church." And y'all probably know the church, The Journey. That's where he was at. And he kept on and on. And I finally just set him down. I said, "Look, dude, I love you. But if you don't shut up, I'm going to punch you in the throat." I didn't really punch him in the throat. But I said, "Dude, if you'll shut up, I will go to church with you." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "Just come try it." So finally, about 3 months into it, I went to church. And at the time at church, and Brian could attest to it, I was so jacked up on meth. Like I was coming down off a crazy party that we did. And I was just, I don't know if y'all ever seen like someone that's coming off meth, but I was just insane. Didn't know what I was saying. Kind of, had the little twitch going and all that. Just gonna be real about it. And I went, and the craziest thing is, even though Brian knew, and I'm sure he told his friends that were there, they accepted me. They even just took me out to eat afterwards. And, they're like, "Dude, I don't," I said, "Look, guys, I'm on meth." They're like, "I don't care." Like, keep, I'm like, "Huh. Okay." Then, Brian asked, like, "Hey, dude, come next Wednesday." I'm like, "Well, that's cool." I said, "Can I, I just asked him, so can I do some meth before I go to church and stuff?" He's like, "I don't care. Just show up." I'm like, that's weird, talking about going to church and you're a mess. So I did my thing, and I kept going. Second time I went, I'm like, okay, well, I can do this and go to church. Third time I went, it was cool. And that fourth time, something hit me. I don't know if y'all know Eddie Schaefer. He was the youth pastor then. So I don't know if it's something Eddie said. A lot of people says maybe it was the drugs you're feeling. I don't know at this time. But something just came over me, and I'm like, man, maybe I need to give my life to God. But I knew I was on meth, and Brian's like, "Dude, we can deal with the meth later. You give your life to God now." So we went to the office and, met with Eddie, and he's like, "Yeah, dude, just," and it's not in the Bible. It's the sinner's prayer. And I know people say you have to have the sinner's prayer, but I'm a firm believer and you got to repent and turn from your ways. But the sinner's prayer meant something to me at that time in my life. And it's not biblical, and it's okay to pray it and everything, but, I just went in there, and Eddie's like, "Man, just pray. Let's just pray together." So we went in and prayed, and, was I saved at that time? Maybe. There was a feeling of peace. I'm not going to say I gave everything fully to God at that time, because I was still at that time on meth and everything. But Eddie and them said, "Dude, just keep coming to youth." And because I didn't want to go to the big church at the time, because I'm like, I don't want to deal with adults. I like the kids. I can hang out with Brian and them because they were all the youth leaders and all that. So I just went and hung out with the youth leaders and went to youth. And finally, God just convicted me. Like, I decided, like, hey, I got to get off meth if I'm going to give my life to God. There was something that God said, like, hey, dude, we got to stop this. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go to rehab then, because that's the only way I knew, because I'm still doing all these lines and stuff. I wasn't really saying going out and partying as much when that all happened at the time, but I was still at home, had my dealer, was just doing my meth just all the time, going to work and all that. So I decided, man, I'm going to try rehab. So I went to one. I just didn't feel comfortable. And I went to the second one. And I'm like, they were talking, and I just went up to the guy, just, nonchalantly went up to the counselor guy, and I said, hey, bro, how did you get off meth? Did you ever do meth? He's like, no, I never done meth. I'm like, so you're telling me I'm at this counseling for drugs, and you have no idea what I'm going through? And he's like, well, I've took classes and books. I said, bro, have you done meth or any of these drugs? He's like, no. So I'm like, okay, dude, I'm out, because if this guy has no idea what I'm going through, I'm not going to sit there and just listen to a book and you tell me that this is how it's going to go. And so I just went home that night after that, and this is where the miracle comes in. To be honest, I just looked up at the ceiling and said, God, I'm a meth head. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, because the counseling wasn't for me, but, if you're going to do something, take it away, man. Just do something. And I fell into this really deep sleep that night. I still remember that. It was like the hardest I ever slept in my life. And I woke up that morning, didn't have any withdrawals, threw all the meth away. And then 3 days later, here comes my, because I had them on a schedule. 3 days later, my meth dealer comes up and he's like, hey, man, I got this fresh stuff, whatever you want to call it. I'm like, dude, I don't want to do it anymore. So that's miracle one, is where God just took the meth addiction away. So it's hard for me sometimes to relate to people I know that go through counseling and that have a hard time, because God literally just took it away from me. And I think God did that for me because he knew I probably would have never got off in the first place if he didn't intervene. And then, so this is miracle number two. This is one of the coolest miracles. Miracle 3 is probably my, one that really gets me every time. But miracle 2 is I started just going to youth after all the meth. I told them what happened, got off the meth, and we were going through youth pastors at the time. Eddie stepped out and went to Chicago, so Dave took over, and then Dave was stepping down. And so, it was cool going to these church services, but at this time, I'll be honest, I was still kind of, sleeping around and stuff or whatever. I didn't really devote my whole life to God. He took some parts off. I was just in the progress, man. It's a big journey for everyone. And so I just kept going, and then this guy, like Naney said, Jeremy Huddleston steps in. And, I'm just tired of going through youth pastors at this point, but this dude had something different about him, man. Still to this day, I wish I could say what that guy has about him. But he came in, and I walked up. I'm kind of like this introverted kid, really didn't have anything going. I was off meth, but at the time, I'm just working, not married or anything, just living life, and really no purpose. After I saw my past and, doing all this, I'm like, man, I really don't have a purpose in life. But it's all good, So anyway, Huddleston was there, and I'm just like, hey, bro, I went on board. Like, I don't really have much to offer. I'm not a musician. You know how churches like musicians, singers, and it's all good. I mean, that's awesome stuff. And, I'm not a great speaker. I'm just like, man, I don't know what I can offer, but I got you, man. And so after I told him that, I finally went to my mom and my family, because most of my family was Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or diehard Roman Catholics, like the old school Roman Catholics. I finally went to my family because I was still living at home at this time when all this happened. That's why I had my drug dealer come in at certain times so no one was home. But so, I told my mom, like, hey, I'm not, told my family, I'm not going to be Jehovah's Witness. I'm not going to be Mormon. I'm not going to be Catholic, because this dude Huddleston has something in him. I really want to serve with this guy and do something. And so when that happened, I got booted out of the house. So I lived in my truck for probably 2 days, and actually, I don't know if y'all know the Lees or not, Holton Lee and them. They kind of took me in and helped me live with them, kind of lived with them for a couple of days, and they helped me get an apartment and get on my feet. Still working, but apartments can be expensive, trying to pay all that stuff and all that junk off. So, they helped me get on my feet and everything. So I started just serving under Huddleston, and that dude, just I don't know how to explain it. He just took his life and poured into this kid that had nothing really going for him. And he's just like, dude, get on this ride. Let's do this together. I'll tell you all a funny story, too, while we're there. There was a time when I got booted out of the house and found my apartment. I was so broke. I was working at the grocery store, and I found 25-cent Raisin Bran boxes. And I was living off that literally for a whole week. And Huddleston's like, bro, he was asking me, how's things going? I said, dude, this Raisin Bran's killing me, because I don't know if y'all ate that much fiber in your life, but boy, it about kill you and the stuff. And that's just what I had. I couldn't even afford the milk at the time. I was eating literally just Raisin Bran out of the box. That's what I was doing to survive. And I attest to Huddleston. He was at the same time, he was kind of, he had the 2 kids, and his wife was still, I don't know if she was graduated from nursing school or not, but they were tied on money at the same time. But he still took his money that he really didn't have to spend at that time and would take me out to eat almost every day till I could get my next paycheck to get ramen noodles and get off this Raisin Bran. So for a whole week, he's taking me to La Huerta or all this, and just something little like that just shows that people investing in people, because he didn't really have the money, but at the same time, God was blessing him, and God made that money there. And then, this is just where he just kept investing, and we, we're doing youth together, and, Thanksgiving rolled around, and, he's just like one day, dude, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? I'm like, man, I got a hungry man Thanksgiving dinner, family's booted me out, didn't really want anything to do, so I'm like, I'm just going to eat my hungry man Thanksgiving dinner, watch a Thanksgiving special, and be happy. And he's like, nah, dude, you're coming with us. And I'm like, I don't know if, if that'd be comfortable being at someone else's family. And so I went over there for the first Thanksgiving, and then I met Nanny and her, late husband, Jimmy. Love that guy, man. But, then they just took me in, and Thanksgiving, I was like, oh, man, that's cool, whatever. But then I went to Christmas. It was the first Christmas I ever got a gift from a family, and they just took me in, and Nanny's like, you're our adopted son now. Get over it, pretty much, So the miracle, too, is that God gave me a family when I didn't have one, when I was booted from somewhere, and just this kid that really had nothing but a minimum wage job at the time, trying to make it, and here God is just saying, here's your family. So we just kept on. I did small groups. Ministry became a big part of my life. At the time I was doing youth small groups, which is what I love, because the whole thing that God has put in my life, especially with Jimmy, Nanny, all her kids, Christy, Travis. I almost forgot Travis. Can't forget Travis. And all of them just invested in my life. So I'm like, man, if these people are investing in me, maybe God's saying, look, just invest in people. You don't have to be a speaker. You don't have to be this. Just invest in people. So that's what I did at youth. I just thought, hey, man, let's do small groups. And we just started investing people. And then finally, here comes, Danielle. Met my wife through a friend. I thought she was smoking hot at the time, so I was like, I'm going to try to marry this girl. But no, really what happened was we started dating. She didn't talk to me for the first 3 months. If y'all ever try to get to know her, good luck, because she doesn't talk at all. She's a mute until you get to know her, and then it's all over. No, I love you. Don't hit me. But we were dating, and Danielle was over here with some girls. We were all at McDonald's eating, and Huddleston just looked at me and said, hey, dude, that's the girl you're going to marry. And Misty said, yep, that's the girl you're going to marry. So after that, I decided to make that commitment, okay, man, that's the girl I'm going to marry. And here we are 11 years later, still married. She hasn't killed me or anything yet, so we're good. But, man, the big thing with that miracle is just God brought my wife, brought a family, and everything. And then miracle 3, the last thing, and I'll get this wrapped up here because I'm tired of talking. I'm not a good speaker, and I feel like I've been yakking y'all's ear off here. But miracle 3 is we got married. We were serving in youth and stuff, and then later on, Huddleston left to go to California to pursue opening another church and other dreams that he had. So he left. Me and the other youth pastor that came along didn't get along too well. Nothing wrong with it. Sometimes, was it Paul and Barnabas, Nanny, that split at the time? Sometimes there's splits that happen, and there's nothing wrong with that. He had a different vision than what I wanted to be part of, and so when Huddleston left and all that, we got out of ministry. We went to some churches and all that, but 5 years later, into our marriage, and I know, man, I don't like talking to this. We decided that, hey, my wife was wanting kids, so we're like, okay, well, we'll try to have kids. So we kept on and on trying having kids, and nothing happened. So in that part of life, it was kind of a bummer, because like, man, you see all these people having kids and we can't have kids. So thought maybe God called us to just foster. So we started fostering kids. We have one right now, which is awesome. Man, we just fostered for a little bit. And then, we decided, like, let's keep trying to have a kid. So we did. We're fostering. We're still foster parents to this day. So we just kept trying. And then at the church we're at now, our pastor Will's like, dude, let's just have the congregation pray over you. So this is probably, year 8, 9 that we're married that we were trying? 7 or 8 that we kept trying. So we've been trying for, almost 4 or 5 years. And, so we had the church pray over us and everything. And, it's always good to pray. There's always a seed planted. There's always something said about prayer. But, it's still like 6 months, 8 months later, still no baby, and the doctors are saying, look, it's just not going to happen, we need to think of a different route. So I thought maybe we're just fostering. But then, I don't know, Will just said, hey, I want to pray over y'all in the office. I'm like, okay, well, that's cool, man. I kind of, I was already just kind of down, like, okay, so we're probably not going to have a kid. I know my wife is wanting one, but Will's like, hey, dude, just come to the office. I'm going to pray over y'all. So we go in the office, he prays over us and all that. I can't remember if he anointed oil that time or if it was the time before. So we prayed, and then a month later, my wife comes to me and says, I'm pregnant. So I'm just going to tell y'all, God brings dead things to life all the time in our lives. Man, I can't tell you. So when y'all see little baby Hazel running around or her mouthing something or wanting something to eat from you, I just, always tell people, like, right there, you see the goodness of God, that baby should have never been born, but God made a way and made it happen. So that's the miracle 3. So God has really shown miracles in my life. And like I said, we're not in ministry right now. We're still looking for kind of our place. God's got us in a waiting period of, because ministry is dear to my heart. Investing in people is dear to my heart. That's the biggest thing. If I could do anything in life, that's what I would want to do, is be at a church all the time and just invest in people. I don't know what that is, what God sees in our future, but, we're still in that waiting period and stuff. So, we're kind of just going along now, living life. We have our, foster kid, and it's just cool going back to these 3 miracles. But what I want to do is not make this about me today. What I want to just really talk about real quick, and then I'll wrap it up. I keep saying that, but I'm going to, I just want y'all to take a second and just think about people in your life that if it wasn't for Huddleston and nannying them, I promise I probably would not be a Christian to this day. God used them more than anyone in my life. And there's been other people that's invested in me. My friend Casey that came today, he's invested in me. And I'm trying to invest back in him the best that I can. But he invested in me. Just coming today to hear me speak for the first time forever, to me that's investing in people. Just little things that we do in life. Maybe it's just taking someone out, to eat and just talking with them. Or maybe it's just, anything. Just a lot of times, sometimes when me and my wife are in the grocery line or something, there's been a few times that person in front of us will just buy their groceries sometimes. It's just little things to invest in people. But when you find that person to invest to, hold on to them. Do not let them go. You keep investing, whether they hurt you or anything. Because me and Huddleston, I was the Eeyore of the bunch back then. Always like, woe is me sometimes because all the stuff I went through. But he never gave up on me. And the cool thing is he never told me what I wanted to hear. If I had an issue, like, dude, I'm feeling this way, all this, he'd just be like, well, look in the scripture here, look in that. I'm like, dude, that's not what I want to hear. And he's like, it's probably what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And a lot of times it's like that. But last thing is just look at the people around you and invest in them. It might be a cousin. It might be a friend. It could be a kid. It could be, invest more time into your marriage. Invest anything that you have in everything. But I just want to take a little time. If anyone, needs prayer or anything, you can come forward or whatever. Nanny, I'm going to have Nanny come up here and pray with y'all so I don't have to. But, man, here's the deal. Jesus invested in us. When he died and on that cross, he invested in every person to give us grace. And God's gave me so much grace over my life because I don't deserve 3 miracles. And I know people ask, like, a lot of times is like, why did God do 3 miracles in your life, but he won't even do one? And I'm going to tell y'all this. The biggest miracle is that we're saved by the grace of God. That he went to that cross for our sins. And if any miracle that we don't deserve, it's that. That is the biggest miracle that can happen. It's cool that we got to have a baby. He took the meth, took all that. But without him dying on that cross, this stuff doesn't mean jack. My life wouldn't mean jack or anything, guys. So I just want to open up a time for prayer if anyone needs prayer or anything. And all that, and then I'll hand it over to Nanny after that.